pleasure to be here. I thought Madison Avenue was kind of the global heart of advertising until I came to Delhi. So I bring New York into the picture because I'm here all the way from New York City to help moderate this session this afternoon, which is all on innovation. We have a series of entrepreneurs who are going to be presenting one by one, covering gaming, brands, technology, what works, what doesn't work. I think this is really an unusual forum in that advertising and technology are coming together. Both are certainly on the growth curve here in India and throughout emerging markets. So I would like to first tell you a little bit about the format. Each panelist will have about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll have questions and answers from the audience, so please warm up your questions. And then we'll move on to the second segment, 2 speakers each 20 minutes. And then the third session, again, repeating. So the format, 20 minutes, slides, presentations, then Q&A for 2 each session, and then the second session, and then the third session. So if you're still with me, I hope you'll stay for the afternoon. I should mention that as we end, I will be signing my new book, Startup Asia, and I would encourage you to take a look at it. About half of the content is on India. It features companies like InMobi, Tutor Vista, Just Dial, many other companies that are emerging here in India, such as Make My Trip, which did a spectacular NASDAQ IPO. I think India technology is now at an inflection point. We're seeing the rise of entrepreneurship here in India that rivals what's happened already in China and in Silicon Valley. So I encourage all of you who are here today to learn, soak up as much information as you can, and strategize for your own future. So thanks very much. Now, to get started, I'd like to introduce our first presenter. He's from InMobi. And I have an entire case study on InMobi in my new book. I've met Naveen Tiwari, the founder, in Bangalore, and interviewed him and heard their whole story. But to tell a little bit more about the advertising side of things here in Asia is Atul Satija, VP, General Manager of the APAC region for InMobi. So Atul, would you please come up? And while he's coming on the stage, just to save time, let me just say, Atul joined InMobi in December 2010 to lead business expansion in the Asia-Pacific region. He brings a wealth of mobile advertising and digital media experience. Prior to InMobi, he worked with Google as head of wireless business for Japan and Asia-Pacific, and was responsible for driving the mobile strategy and partnerships with carriers and publishers. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Atul. Please stay and welcome him. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Well, hello, everyone. The topic of my conversation here is how can we help increase the engagement with the users? And I'll use the rich media interactive advertising as a tool to showcase how we can do that. I have a lot of agenda to cover, so I'll dive straight in. I have 4 pieces to my presentation. The first one I'll talk about is how engagement happens in various media right now. I'll talk about how mobile fares as an engagement medium. I'll show some examples, some case studies along the way, and I'll talk about how can we really measure this engagement that we're talking about. But before I do that, let me give you a very quick introduction to InMobi. Can we have a quick show of hands, please? How many of you have heard of InMobi before? Wow, so it's about 60–70%. For the rest of you, I'll just take 30 seconds and very briefly introduce us. We are a mobile advertising network started out of India. When I say network, what we do is we connect with publishers on one side, and we work with advertisers on the other side, and we take the audience that these publishers have and connect them to the advertisers who are looking for that audience. And we sit in the center managing this transaction in a very technically efficient and scalable way. So when we started the business in September 2008, the first month when we launched the product, we got 80 million impressions on our ad network. We started expanding into other regions in Southeast Asia initially, then Africa, We added US, Europe, Japan. And today we are the second largest mobile ad network globally. We are the largest independent ad network. And we do about 100 billion ads on a monthly basis on our network across 165 plus countries. Let's come back to the topic now. So when I say engagement, what do we really mean with that? I went up to Merriam-Webster and looked up for the definition of engagement. And what I learned is that emotional involvement or commitment is what they say it means. And I think when you say involvement, it inherently means that you're actually having the user involved, engaged, interacted with you, right? There has to be a feedback mechanism for you to interact with the audience on the other side to really have engagement in a true sense. So let's look at all the traditional media that we are so used to and see how engagement happens there. Let's look at outdoors. When you look at outdoor as a medium, it's inherently two-dimensional medium, right? The canvas for creativity is very less. I picked up some of the relatively more creative examples, but even here, all of these are creative examples, but I don't think they're necessarily engaging enough, right? You don't engage with the brand just because you look at something very creative on the screen up there. Let's look at print as an example. Print obviously has the same limitations that outdoors or billboards have. It's again a two-dimensional medium. We look at it, we have text, images, we read it. There are some interesting examples that push the boundary of print. We saw a VW ad recently in Times of India where we saw an audio chip embedded which actually played a small sound when you open the newspaper. It's very innovative indeed. And there was another one done by CBS in US in their entertainment weekly publication where they actually embedded not just an audio chip but also a video chip inside it. There was a small screen in. So in a magazine, you can actually see a little bit of a video. But they were all innovations. They were creative, and they were also viral. So people would talk about it because that's happening for the first time. But they're not really engaging. I don't do anything with that once I look at it. I don't go and start talking about VW automobile. I talk about that they put an audio chip inside it. It's not really engaging with the brand per se. Let's look at television, right? That's where most of the media dollars go. That's the largest medium in India and most parts globally. But when you look at television, right, some ads stand out, and all of these are very creative ads. All of us remember these ads from when Pepsi launched in India with Amir Khan and Aishwarya Rai. There's a Happy Dent example up there where they're using the concept of whiteness of teeth as light to convey a point that this chewing gum actually helps you keep your teeth white. The third one is a very good example of connecting with the users by creating a character Lalita ji with Surf Excel. Those who actually watched TV in 80s would remember this character Lalita ji. And it really was very effective ad. It was effective, it was creative, but I don't think it's necessarily that engaging. And I'll tell you why. TV has the benefits of audiovisual. So they can be very emotive. The creative canvas is very large. When you look at all the best creative guys in the industry, they all go to TV industry. Right? Let's look at digital. The problem with the TV as a medium is that there is no interaction there. And obviously all of us sitting here have a bias to digital, so we all know that very intuitively. But what happens is while the creative canvas exists on TV, there is no feedback loop. Beyond just sending SMSs for some polls, we don't interact with TV. But when you look at digital as a medium, you actually have all the benefits of interactivity which can drive engagement up that do not exist on TV. But you know what is the limitation of digital as a medium? It doesn't have the creative canvas that TV has. There is no audiovisual feel to it. So emotional connect on digital is a very difficult thing to achieve. And people who have spent crazy amount of dollars trying to create digital campaigns would know that. You can spread the message. It can complete your story when you are running the story on TV. But it is very difficult to create emotions from an internet campaign. So the creative canvas went missing when we went to digital. I don't know of creative best interactive art directors, creative directors leaving TV industry and joining digital. So creativity totally went missing. So what I understand from engagement is that it needs all of these components. You have to fill all of these gaps to really engage the audience. You obviously need a creative canvas, which exists on TV very well. You need to have an emotional connect, which is driven from your creativity to engage the users, but you also need interactivity. And while digital has interactivity, the challenge of that interaction is that it's very plastic, it's very machine-like. I know of kids, 2-year, 3-year, 4-year-old kids who can interact with an iPad and an iPhone. I don't know of kids who do that on the laptops or the desktops. So the interaction with the digital industry so far has been with a keyboard and a mouse. That is not how human-to-human interaction works. So let's see if there is something better than the media that we have seen. And obviously, I'm going to build a case that mobile is the medium that fills that gap. And we'll see how it directionally is getting there already. One point to add is that all of this engagement is worthwhile when you can really measure it. Otherwise, we can't expect brands to come up and start spending money on this medium. So let's talk about mobile for a second. How many of you here are using Android phones right now or an iOS, any of the high-end smartphones? How many of you were doing it last year? And how many of you were doing it the year before, 2008? So in just 3 years, people sitting in this room, from 5–10% of the people who were on these high-end smartphones, now we have 70% people using it. In the next 1 year, that number will actually go up to 85–90%. And not just in this room, even when we go outside. I talked about the limitations of print as a medium. Now here's a GQ magazine from UK. This is the home page of the magazine. I just will flip through the magazine. Here's the second page. It's a very typical print campaigns that we are so used to seeing, right? It's a full page ad for a shoe brand. What happens is when I move my iPad, it says, click here to create your shoe. And it's a print magazine's e-edition. I touch on the ad and I see a normal shoe there. But the beauty is that I can scroll around and make the ad come to life. Not only can I change the color of the leather, I can even pick what material I want. Suede or leather or velvet or something else. Right? And I move it around and I'm back on the ad. I keep scrolling through this and I see more ads come up which are very simple, very intuitive, usual print ads. But all of these are not static ads. Here's an example for a Dunhill ad. It's a usual ad. I move it around, it rotates, and I see sound. We don't have the audio working here, but I just wanted to give you a sense that how these devices are actually bringing all these experiences to life. The media is not restricted anymore by just the limitations of that media when you look at these devices. Let me show you some more examples, this time from my phone, of some of the work that we have done. Some time back, we acquired a company called Sprout. That company was actually becoming the standard for HTML5 ad creation. So if you look at my phone on the screen here, on the other side, there's this icon that I'm clicking on my iPhone. Now this is not a tablet, it's a phone, and I have some examples here. Let me run through the first one. It's a Levi's ad. So when I click on the ad, it's like a usual banner ad actually expanding to become a rich media ad. But this is what you can do with this ad. It says, hey, tap to continue. We have reinvented the way you shop for jeans. I tap on the ad. Now, this is not a landing page or an app that we have built. This whole experience is an ad in itself. So when I touch on this one, it basically says, hey, just walk through this entire experience to find the jeans that will fit you well. So the first it asks me to say is, hey, identify your waist. Do you have some curve? You're very curvy, very, very curvy. Let us say I choose some curve. I go to the second option. It says, okay, what's your seat like? Are you flat, average, full? Let me say full. And it asks what are the usual problems that you have when you actually buy a jeans. Is the waist is too tight always? Do you have gaps in the back, not enough coverage? Let me just continue with the experience. And when I say that, it says, you know what? You are a bold curve. And this is the jeans that is ideal for you. And I can actually go and read about why the ad recommended me this one. And I can scroll through and look at all the other things that the ad is recommending me. Let me go back and show you another example. Now, this entire experience was built using a tool There was no manual expensive coding required for that. It's almost like a Photoshop for ads that you can drag and drop and build these ads. I'll show you another example. It's actually for the merchandise for Angry Birds, the Angry Birds t-shirts. But what is happening now is, just because you have so many sensors inside the device, you can actually use all of them to create deep engagement. Now in this one, I'm just going to shake the phone. You can't see it on the screen, but I'll show it here. When I shake my phone here, you actually see the t-shirt changing. Right? Now this experience is something that apps use. All of us have talked to applications. The applications have talked back to us, whether it is Talking Tom, whether it is using physics in Angry Birds, Shazam, all of this. But ads were not using it all this while. So our interaction with mobile as a medium has evolved. It's very real, it's very human, it's very natural. We touch it. We don't play with the keyboard. We have got rid of T9 keyboards that we used to have even on these devices. This is a very usual experience, right? So I can actually move the whole t-shirt around with my finger just to see how it looks. And I can shake it, the next one, and I just swipe it around. There's a buy button, there's a Facebook button, you can do a social connect, transactions, commerce, all of this is happening through the ads itself. One last example before I move on. This is for Stoli vodka, where when you see here, it's basically showing you what are the various recipes of drinks you can make with vodka. And here's the first one. I can actually move it around and see the different options. I can touch and see the menu for that, the recipe for that particular drink. I can click on video, and the video can actually play up. All this experience is actually happening within the ad. So I just wanted to highlight what all is possible on mobile as a medium. But let's see what happened along the way. When you look at mobile phones and the whole ecosystem here, there are 4 dimensions where innovation happened. When you look at as recently as 1999, that was the first time when we saw the first commercial PC getting launched. All of us are now carrying at least one, most of us 2, and some also carrying an iPad with us or some other tablet. We are all carrying 3 gigahertz in our pockets right now. Pretty much anything that you want computers to do, you can do from your pockets, from the machines that you're carrying with you. The second thing that changed very fundamentally is the screen size. We used to have these small backlit green screens with black characters moving around. What has happened now in just last 3 or 4 years is that you have screens grow from 1 inch to 2 inch to 3 inch to 4.3, and now you have 5 inch and 7 inch and 9 inch also. It's entire continuum. You pick the size you want. And they are not dumb screens. It's not just the size. They are all touch screens. 3 years back, when for some of you said you had an Android or an iOS, that device and that touchscreen was costing north of $500, $600. Today, it's only about $100 when you can get a resistive touchscreen, good quality phone from the market. The sensors, I think this is the most understated value that these devices bring to us. All of us are carrying an accelerometer, a gyrometer, a GPS, a back camera, a front camera, and very soon NFC chipsets as well. And this is extremely powerful. Now, what that has changed for us is that the experience for all of us has evolved from just viewing information on these devices to interacting with them to now where we can actually be deeply immersed with these experiences. And I think advertising is evolving along with this hardware innovation. We used to have phones where we would use them for voice. Now we can use them for data, then multimedia, and now touchscreens and sensors. The content evolved similarly from text and news from these WML sites that we had 5 years back to rich media to now games and movies. And I think ads are going to evolve the same way. We already had SMS ads. We had banner ads. I showed you examples of rich media ads. We do about 50% of all brand campaigns purely on rich media now, globally, not just in India. And India is not far behind. The numbers probably even would be higher than that in India if you look at it. Now, I will skip through these capabilities that we all talked about, but I'll give you a couple of quick screen case studies. I'll flip through this. These are more examples of the same rich media stuff where you can touch the ad expands, there is interaction, there is interactivity, all of that stuff. But here's an interesting example where there's a Lifebuoy ad it says wipe the dirt. And the ad invites you to clear the dirt off your hand. When you use your finger to clear the dirt off the screen, at the end it says there are still more germs left. Lifebuoy helps you clean all of it, right? And it gives you the product information and actually makes you relate to the whole story. There's a campaign we ran in China. It's an Adidas campaign where when you touch the ad, the banner expands. You see this guy dunking the ball and it says, hey, shake the phone to break the glass. But when you shake the phone, it feels like the product has come out of it. Right? The glass breaks and the product comes out. So people actually interact. They're a part of the ad itself, which is why they can actually deeply, emotionally be involved with the brand. Here's an example where it says, hey, touch your favorite food. When you try to touch it, it actually shows smudge screen where you touch it. And it says, hey, you're actually adding germs to the food. And it says, go first, clean your hands. Right? And I think all this is useful. I just wanted to give you highlights of what's happening in the mobile industry overall. This is not a medium that's a subset of digital. This is a lot more than that. We just will realize it 2 years later. And the only way you can actually get brands to spend money on this when you can actually make them measure it. And this is, I think, the beauty of it. Just because you can do all of these things on ads doesn't mean you have to only measure the click-through rates now. You can measure the average time a user spent engaging with the ad, 45 seconds in this example. You have the hotspots you can define where a user entered, exited the ad, at what point in time and how much time he spent there. You can see if there's a video embedded in the ad. You can see what percentage of users played, what length of the video, and so on and so forth. And you can use that for very interesting stuff. Say, for example, you have an automobile ad running, which has 4 colors to configure, red, silver, and black. We can actually tell you with these ads that people spend 35% more time playing with the red color of Ford Endeavor. Now that has a huge implication on how they decide even the outdoor strategy, for example. So these are all actionable insights that you can get from this advertising, which is not possible in digital. And I made an argument initially that creative guys left digital. But I think we have, as InMobi itself, about 25 art directors within APAC. Most of them have come from Hollywood animation. So really, creativity is coming back because the canvas is very wide. And we are investing ahead of the curve, and I'm sure the whole industry is.